Welcome to the last day for
The last
BTL with Frank Scalish of January. Man, we made it a month, Frank.
You scared me. You said the last day for, and you paused. I was like,
know.
is there something I should know about?
So here's the thing. I got an email from someone that said, man, you're doing a great job with BTL. Love everything that's going on. But I hate that you started pausing while you're talking. And I said, well, yeah. I said, here's the reality of it. And I didn't answer. I just said, man, yeah, I'll work on it. Thank you for the great feedback. Appreciate the support. So, but here's the reality of it is I'm trying to make sure I get the logo off, the music down, that we're live, that it's still streaming, and that the bumper music is down and that you're on.
Well, yeah.
And that everything is running. So as a result, unlike Jeffries, who did this for 15, 16 years, the guy's like the mad scientist over. He's like he's flying a helicopter. He's got things going on with both feet and both hands, and he's carrying on a conversation, and he's watching the stock market and worried about his fescue and planning his next bowling trip. I'm just trying to make it work, Frank.
I know, dude. And the pause, I call it a helpful pause. So you can get everything done what you got to get done and make sure that it's going where it needs to go.
What I'm working on is, here's the two options. Well, there's three. Get better, so there is no pause. That's option number one. That will happen. Trust me. Hang with me in there, folks. Hang with me, Frank. Option number two is give it the old which you want it. That's not good. But you're hosting a show. You can't do the ubs and the uhs and the likes, which I'm working on too. Or you embrace the silence. You take that minute to regroup. You let everybody focus on it. And it's a comfortable silence.
That's
Those
exactly
are three
right.
options. So I'll take option one. I'll just get better at it.
Just keep doing what you're doing. It's all working out.
Dude, we got a great show today, Frank. We are actually going to circle back to the 50th show. We're going to do two things. We're going to circle back from the 50th show because there is still a discount code out on lurenet.com for the BTL listeners while we talk about what's going on the show. And here comes one of those pauses.
A capital BTL 22 for those who can't see the screen.
15% off at lurenet.com. That was a little gift from Uncle Frank to all of the very loyal listeners of BTL, capital BTL 22 at Lurenet in honor of the 50th show, which was last week, which would make this the 51st show.
I was told there would be no math.
That is a basic addition there. But one of the things we teased last week was on the water winter safety, cold weather, winter safety, and then we never got back to it because
we never came back around.
Yeah, your finesse fishing with the sparky head and the beaver style bait actually took off, and we ended up down that wormhole for 30 or 40 minutes. So you contacted me yesterday, said you wanted to circle back to that, and then technique wise, something I don't think I've done very much and should do. What are we talking about today, technique wise, Frank?
Winter swim jig fishing in the winter months, late fall through early spring. In fact, the best way to categorize it is anytime you pick up a Flash Mob Junior. I throw this bait in conjunction with a Flash Mob Junior.
With an umbrella rig.
Yeah.
Really?
So this is really cool stuff. Now, obviously for us, this year's not working out good because we got 8 inches of ice. But normally, like the last 7 years, I fished out of the boat to almost the middle of February. And then the ice melted in the end of February. So I was back on the water again in March. This year is probably more typical of our Northern Ohio winters where we, locked in early in December and we've been locked in. Well, actually not December, because the last time I actually got on the water was New Year's Eve. And then
but
literally
you've been technically on the water though. You've been on the water, not floating in the water, on it.
Well, technically I've been in a bass boat. This year we're walking on the water.
Yeah.
Because we're ice fishing now. We haven't had a good ice season in a lot of years. So, I kind of I love ice fishing, so I'm kind of happy, but I would rather fish out of my boat. So it's a double-edged sword. I ice fish because I love it and out of necessity. Um, but realistically, I would rather be fishing out of the boat because I've had some astronomical days out of the boat in February up north, and I miss that. And part of today's show is the swim jig technique, which is a fantastic and grossly overlooked winter technique, and I'll get into that later in the show. But we
Videos, diagrams, everything.
videos. I don't have a diagram, but I could make one. But so but the one thing about wintertime fishing, and I fished my whole life in the winter. I crack ice till I get out to open water. I fish out of my boat till I can't physically get it in a lake anymore. But there's a lot of dangers that come into play when you're in a boat and the air temperature's in the 20s and the water temperature's 38 degrees, even 45-degree water temperature, you get hypothermia in like 6 minutes. And hypothermia is a crazy thing. And I have gone in the boat. I've fallen in the boat and off the boat in January before.
Really?
Yeah. And when you hit the water, okay, the water is so cold that it shocks your system. Like you know what I mean? You're like, it's like unbelievable. And the thing that you don't understand is you can't swim with a snowmobile suit on. It gets heavy as a brick, and the minute it gets wet and you go down, and there's nothing you can do not to sink in a snowmobile suit, except for try to grab onto the boat or your partner, or if he throws you one of the tubes. So I really want to talk about winter boating safety. If we're going to talk about wintertime fishing, I think this should go hand in hand with any fishing technique.
Do you want to talk about the winter boating safety, and then we could follow that up with the
Yes.
most delicious meal that you could have following a winter boating
Oh
excursion?
no! Okay, so let's.
Or do you want to preface it by by nourishment before you head out to fish in the winter?
Yes, let's do nourishment first. Okay. So yeah.
This is Bass Talk Live, but we are now on the cooking channel,
right,
with Chef Frank.
Somebody DM'd me the other day. Okay, so here, I'm going to preface all this first so we get started. I don't post pictures of food. Although there are times when I will make deer fillets and I take pictures of them and send them to my sons because I bust their chops because they don't have any deer meat. And I want to show them what I'm eating, and then they get, then we go back.
I ate your tenderloin 2 nights ago that Frankie left for was it supposed to be yours? And then I ended up, it was delicious. By the way.
Wasn't it great?
It was.
That was fantastic. Right. So anyhow, so I take the pictures and I send them back and forth to Frankie and Josh and Noah. And, we go back and forth, ragging on each other. And then, so the other night I was debating whether to have crappie fillets, walleye fillets, and I wasn't sure. Now none of the kids are at home now, and so I had frozen a bag of crappie fillets, but I had put enough in there to feed us all when they're home. So I'm like, I can't thaw that out because I can't eat all that. So I looked at the walleye, and I had 2 massive walleye fillets, and I'm like, no, that
looked like a salmon.
Yeah, oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Them big, 6 and 7 pounders. So I'm like, now I'm not going to do it. Well, lo and behold, I found a bunch of bags of walleye cheeks, because for those who don't know, the cheek meat in the walleye is delicious, and it has the same consistency as a mollusk. Okay, a clam, for example, it has that same chewy consistency. So I make New England clam chowder, but I use my walleye cheeks instead of clams. So I made this, and I posted it on my Instagram page, Scalish_fishing. And I posted this
plug.
big, you like that? Was it?
Yeah, you're
It was
learning.
right in there.
You're getting into the social media game, Frank.
I know. It's scary when an old geezer gets into it, ain't it? It's like a new language. So anyhow, so I post this picture, and lo and behold, it starts blowing up. So I'm like, okay, well, people are going, cooking with Uncle Frank, day 5, BTL. They're sending me all this fantastic stuff. Well, some of it's so funny I can't even stand it. I laugh. You guys, some of you guys are so funny I can't even stand it. Like, I'm gonna read another post that I gotta read this later. Remind me to read you the lure post later.
All
But
right.
so I post this. Well, then everybody wants the recipe for it.
Oh, so you didn't post the actual recipe? You just posted the.
I just posted the finished product.
You give me the word. I'll pop that recipe up whenever you're ready.
Lay it up there. So here's the recipe, guys. And it's so funny. Okay, so here's the recipe. This is,
I like how you labeled it, Uncle Frank's walleye cheek chowder.
Well, yeah, you got to call it what it is.
Okay, hypothetically, you got to say before we go through this, if I'm in Oklahoma or Florida or Georgia, what's a substitute for the cheek?
You can dice the fillets up and make a fish chowder. Same way.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
but run through the highlights.
Okay, so if you're going to use a fillet for this, don't dice it up as fine as you would try to dice up a clam. Okay, make the chunks a little bit bigger because they will reduce down. So it's really a simple way. It's a really simple recipe. Basically, I took a fast recipe for New England clam chowder, and then I added my own stuff to it. Okay, so I use 1 to 2 cups of diced walleye cheeks. I like it a little meatier, so I'll use more than 1 cup. 4 to 5 slices of bacon diced, 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, 2 cloves of minced garlic.
A lot of stuff in this.
Right. 1 onion diced, a half a teaspoon of dried thyme, 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, and that'll be your thickening agent in a minute.
Okay.
1 cup of milk, 1 cup of vegetable stock, which you can substitute vegetable stock for chicken stock, but I like the vegetable stock because I want the clammy taste. 8 ounces of clam juice.
That's a thing, huh?
Yeah. 8 ounces of blah, blah, blah.
I didn't know that
clam
was a thing,
juice.
Uncle Frank.
What's a thing?
Clam juice. At some point in history, someone had to squeeze a clam and look over and say, Sven, you know what we should do here?
We should have a cup of juice.
we should put this juice in a can and then seal it and sell it worldwide.
It actually comes in a bottle, but that's cool. Yeah, it actually, that's...
I mean,
Sven, you know what we should do?
We should open your mouth. Let me squeeze this clam directly into your mouth. Oh,
and how's that juice taste? So yeah, so then you got me all jacked up. So then you use 1 cup of half and half. I dice and peel 2 large russet potatoes, 1 bay leaf, kosher salt, ground black pepper to taste. I cut up 1 long celery stalk into even little, half moon pieces, mushrooms, and then 2 tablespoons of chopped fresh parsley, and that's just for the garnish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't eat it with the parsley on, but my wife does. Okay. And so the directions, the actual cooking instructions are right under there. So that you're going to heat a large stock pot or Dutch oven under.
The 2 things I did not expect on the 51st day for are
I didn't
conversations
expect it either.
About Dutch ovens and clam juice.
Hey, We have sunk to a new level.
Okay, continue. I'll act as
We
mature as
sunk
possible.
to a new level. Okay, so I'm going to just say a large stock pot, medium heat, medium high heat. Add the bacon, cook it till it's brown and crispy. Take the bacon out, leave the excess bacon fat in the pot.
Okay.
Melt the butter in the stock pot. Add the garlic, onion, and cook that until the onions become semi-translucent. Throw the thyme in. Whisk your flour in till it's brown. Whisk in the milk, the vegetable stock, the clam juice, and throw the bay leaf in. Whisk this and consistently until it's slightly thickened. Put your potatoes, celery, mushrooms, and some of the bacon in it. Bring to a boil. Reduce the heat till the potatoes start to get a little bit tender.
So you stick a fork in them.
Yeah,
You can tell.
Exactly. Stir in the half and half. Add the walleye cheeks. Season with salt and pepper to taste. If you like a thicker broth, leave it thick. If you want to thin it up, you can add a little more half and half with some vegetable stock until you get the desired thickness. Let simmer until it's done and eat it. It's fantastic.
Dude, that sounds really good.
It is super fantastic.
The toughest part, and I can't highlight it. Yeah, I can highlight it right there. 2 cups of walleye cheeks that's the rich getting richer right there, Frank.
Yeah, I know
that's
it
a
is.
lot of walleye cheeks. Not all of us catch the 6 and 7s.
Right, but here, look, it's 1 to 2 cups. You can use 1 or 2. But the thing is that you would save your walleye cheeks until you got enough of them.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff. That's
yeah,
good stuff.
Fantastic.
I see there's someone on the Instant Feedback Walleye channel. Finally, a show I can get into. When I first saw that name, this is the first thing that came to mind. I thought it was Walleye Chanel. So I was like, oh, that is a high-class walleye fisherman that is listening to us. Then I realized it was Walleye Channel.
Oh, God. Did I spell it wrong?
No, it's just on the Instant Feedback Walleye Channel.
That is hilarious.
All
okay,
right,
so I'm reading one more. I'm reading something. Okay, so on my Instagram page, I painted a bunch of Norman Fat Boys. Okay,
right.
I just painted a bunch of Norman Fat Boys for my own personal use because I can. So I have to read this post because you guys are so funny. I can't even tell you how funny this is to me. So this guy posts down on here, and I have to find it, and I don't have my glasses on, so hold on. Bear with me. I'm going to keep bloviating until I find this thing.
Jeffrey's left his glasses in the studio. He's over here.
Well, it doesn't do me any good if they're over there.
If I hold this up to the screen and then you hold your phone up to the screen.
Okay, here it is.
Here
it is. Now remember, I posted some of my custom paint jobs on there, and this St. Clair Fishing is the dude who wrote this, and I'm not kidding you. I laughed for 20 minutes. It says, when some people say the Mona Lisa is the most impressive piece of art in history, Uncle Frank says, hold my beer and check this out.
That's high praise.
Oh my God, you guys are great. I absolutely love this. This is the most fun I've ever had in my life. This is so much fun. So anyway, so that's why the recipe's up there. For those who wonder why we got the cooking channel going.
I'll go back and definitely do that with some crappie chunks.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds really good.
You can do that for sure with that. It's just you got to cut the fillet chunks got to be a little bit bigger than you would normally.
Like the tenderloin, that stuff, not the thin stuff, but the big thick chunk
back
at the top of the fillet, right? And then you do the thin and crispy fry with the kind of bottom half below the rib cage and the back quarter of it.
Right. That is so money, dude. That is so money. So anyway, so we're talking winter. I guess we better go into winter boating safety.
Yes, 100%.
All right. So here's the thing. hypothermia is no joke. It is no joke. And when I go out in my boat in the wintertime, I always carry a towel and extra clothes in case the worst thing happens and you go overboard. Okay, you're going to need it, believe me. And so I used to carry an extra, like snowmobile suit in the boat in case too, because you can't just wear regular clothes. You got to have something to put on that's warm. But what I have found over the last probably 20 years, when I first started fishing in the wintertime and early spring ice out on Lake Erie, I bought a Stearns flotation suit, Coast Guard flotation suit, like the crap you see on Deadliest Catch, because that's pretty much the only thing they made back then. It was cumbersome. It was bulky. You could hardly move around in it, but it would give you 3 extra minutes if you fell in the water from hypothermia. Now, people say, oh, big deal, 3 minutes. 3 minutes is an eternity if your life depends on it. Trust me. So as time progressed, the clothing industry got a little more streamlined with their winter gear. So it made it more comfortable for us to fish in the winter. The big thing is most people use snowmobile suits because they're waterproof and they're warm. And so they use snowmobile suits. The problem with snowmobile suits is if you fall in the water in a snowmobile suit, you sink like a brick because all the foam fill and all the stuff that keeps your heat in gets heavy, fills with water, gets heavy. I've fallen in the wintertime, and when I tell you you can't get out of the water, you can't get out of the water. I had a buddy of mine with me. If he wasn't there to pull me out, I would have been in a lot of trouble because I grabbed onto the boat, but I couldn't hardly. It weighed a ton.
In a snowmobile suit.
In a snowmobile suit. So what I started doing is they started making flotation suits for ice fishing, which are insanely warm. The bibs float, the jackets float. And of course, here there's a million different suits out there. Not a million, but there's a lot of companies that make them. I've had a bunch of them. I just bought a new one the other day. Striker makes one of the best that I've come across. They're a little bit expensive, but they'll last you forever and they'll save your life.
And they float.
And they float. Frable makes them. A lot of the ice fishing companies make them. So you really can't go wrong. But if you're going to buy the ice fishing suits, and here I fish with those in the wintertime, ice out, and especially on the Great Lakes when I'm fishing in the spring on the Great Lakes, because there it gets rough. So you want to be protected. And that's really the key. Wool socks, I use 100% pure wool socks, polypropylene, and fleece lined pants underneath my ice fishing suit. And the thing is, you don't want to bulk so many clothes on that you can't move around good. You do want layers, but the trick is loose layers. Your polypropylene will fit tight underneath, and then you loosely layer a couple more items to hold your body heat, because if it's loose, that body heat stays in between those layers. Your body heat's not escaping. And that's really the most important thing. The other thing is if you fish alone in the winter, you always have to let somebody know where you're at or where you're going to be. Because if something happens when you're by yourself, it could be very catastrophic. I don't even recommend fishing alone in the winter, even though I'm guilty as charged.
It's a lot more fun to go out with a friend because typically you're not. I mean, unless you're on like just a
Right.
massive wad, it's more fun out there as someone. But so here's a couple tips that I've also learned from fishing alone in the winter.
Exactly.
You shouldn't do. One is really understand how your ladder deploys if you have one on the back of your boat.
Yeah.
Because if you don't exactly know how that thing deploys, some of them have like a pull, some of them have a latch, some of them have something, and you can get around there and get onto your
Ladder.
Yeah, but what do they call? Oh, is that the cavitation plate that's right
Yeah.
above the prop?
Yes.
You can save yourself by getting a little bit of momentum with your legs on the cavitation plate. Then you can get your ladder down. The other thing that I always do in the winter when I'm crappie fishing, when I'm bass fishing, is I will tie off a 8-foot section of rope to a back cleat.
Yep.
And then I will just leave that rope while I'm fishing on the back deck. If I'm running, I'll just put it in the back compartment and leave it out there.
Mm-hmm.
But it is nothing better. And you could even put a loop, and I need to do this more.
Yeah.
I had one before that had a loop that I could put like my foot in on the back of it. But just that rope combined with the ladder will give you enough momentum, because let's be honest, there's not very many of us with that much upper body strength once the hypothermia hits in to get.
Well, you can't, because you lose your mobility once you start getting hypothermia.
But you can stay along that little stretch, grab that rope, tie a couple knots in it, so you have some things for the hands, know where your ladder is, and use that cavitation plate. And there's 3 ways to have a really good chance to get yourself and hoist yourself up on the back deck. Then follow your advice. Have one of those giant, heftier Ziploc bags that you have a complete change of dry clothes in, a towel, things like that.
It's a must. It's an absolute must. When I've trimmed myself up on my outboard before, because I've gone in a couple of times, and I've trimmed myself up on the outboard. So yeah, you just have to be super careful. You can't be in a big hurry in the wintertime, especially in the snow. I've fished in snowstorms before, and that boat deck gets like a skating rink because the snow accumulates on your boat deck. And you can't obviously shovel it off. So you're constantly walking on it, you're packing it down, and it gets slick. You know what I mean? So you really have to be careful. And I never stand on the fiberglass in the winter.
Yeah, that's
like if I'm
slips.
flipping and pitching in the summertime, I'll stand on the nose of my boat sometimes. Of course, with all the locators you guys use today, you don't have room to get up there.
But not me. I got 2 9s up front and a 12-inch dash.
Perfect. So I'll get on the nose of that boat to get a little farther into the brush, but I never in the winter do you put your foot on that fiberglass, because you'll go right in.
The other thing I use North Face hiking boots that are waterproof.
Yes.
But they're not the kind that have all of the they're not the kind that like are welded onto the foot. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They're a kind that if I really want to, I can take my other foot and I can pull that boot off of that hiking boot off of my foot with the other shoe.
Oh yeah, I know. I see what you're saying.
Here's the thing: if you've got these big, giant, steel, heavy, insulated boots that take all this stitching to get up, like that's literally like having rocks on your feet.
Oh yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
if you can at least get that other foot behind it, get the leverage, and pop those feet off, it's a lot less weight that you're dealing with. And so what? You lose $150 pair of shoes. But but
what price do you put on?
Yeah, and that's a kind of a trick that I learned a couple years ago from a buddy who's like, man, you want to wear shoes or boots that have a little tab on the back that you can get that other foot behind if you happen to go in and kick it off and lose all that weight.
Yeah, it's true. But that's, because let's be honest, some of the best fishing is in the winter. And it's a shame not to take advantage of it if you can, but you have to be so super careful when you're fishing in the wintertime, because hypothermia is no joke. It is not a joke.
Have you ever saved anyone?
I saved a guy from heat stroke, not hypothermia.
That's a July show, Frank.
Yeah, I know. It was scary, actually.
Really?
He went into convulsions in my boat.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I kept telling him, drink, you got to drink, you got to drink, you got to drink. And we were in Lake Eufaula in Alabama. And all of a sudden, I said, you don't look good, dude. And I looked down there, and he's got his bottle of water sitting down there, and there's probably 2 ounces of water missing. And I'm like, dude, I told you to start drinking water before we even got on the lake. You know what I mean? Because here's, I guess we're going into dehydration. Here's what I found out. Okay. I'm a coffee drinker and I drink beer. Both of those things dehydrate you before you ever even wake up in the morning. if you have a few beers before you go to bed, you're dehydrated when you wake up. Cup of coffee in the morning, automatically, it's a diuretic. You're automatically dehydrated. They were telling me, like, the nutritionist was telling me that, like, if I have 2 cups of coffee, I need to put a gallon of water in my body to make up for everything I'm losing. And if you drink beer, you got to drink more water than that. And so the problem is most of us wake up dehydrated. We hit the water dehydrated, and nobody drinks enough water. And really, realistically, water's the best thing you can drink out there. Now, people will say Gatorade is the answer. Well, Gatorade will replace your electrolytes. So what I usually do, and there's mineral waters now and vitamin waters now, which we didn't have back then. So what I used to do back then was I would just get, for every 3 bottles of water I drank, I would drink a half a bottle of Gatorade.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I did it when I was fishing Bassmasters. And I had a friend of mine, which I'm not going to mention his name, pulled up to me on Gunnersville one time, and he drank like 3 liters of Pepsi. And I'm like, dude, that stuff will dehydrate you to death. Drinking pop is not the answer. Drinking pop doesn't replace anything your body's losing. So you want to do the water/Gatorade mix thing.
Mm-hmm. Bring it back to cold water. You brought up some great points. These 3 things will 100% make you enjoy your winter day of fishing.
100%.
This is it. Here's a 3. You ready? 1.
Go.
Good meal in the morning. Get some calories in you that your body can burn that fuel and use it to keep you warm. I'm talking the bacon and eggs, the high protein biscuits and gravy. Like, even if you're not hungry, eat before you go out.
True.
Number 2, coffee, any like energy drinks. I avoid those in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Because they're a vasoconstrictor. They shrink the size of your blood flow through your body, so your extremities are getting less blood flow. And I did this because I've got that like Raynaud's where my hands turn like white. I've been to the doctor for it. I'm like, it's 50 degrees out and everyone's having a good time, and I'm over here like with crabber's claw. I'm serious.
I am not an animal.
No, so caffeine does that. That's coffee.
Yeah.
That's your Red Bulls. That's your energy drinks. The other thing that is a vasoconstrictor, nicotine.
Yes, I know that. But I don't smoke, so I'm good.
I know, but I'm just saying, in the wintertime, you get up, you're like, I got to get on the water, have a great time. You don't eat anything. You slam a Red Bull, and then you throw in a dip, and you just set yourself up to be miserable for the day, as opposed to good breakfast, hydrated, and water.
And proper clothing. Yeah. Listen, Frankie and I were ice fishing last weekend, and I have a pop-up, a little pop-up shanty, and we have the heater and everything. So if it gets really windy and bad, we just go inside of that, crank the heater on, and basically I'm fishing in a hoodie. Okay, makes it nice. But here, look, it was -7 when we got to the lake, and we were on a mission to find fish, which we failed miserably at, but all we caught were little ones. But anyway, we were on a mission to find fish, so I'm like, we're not setting this house up until we're on them good, because once you get inside that thing and you get warm, you're staying there the rest of the day. You don't want to move.
You're not hunting them.
You're not hunting them. You've relegated yourself to bobber fishing. That's what
when you start trying to convince your buddy this is a migration route. They'll swim through every time. You just stay patient. Like, it will go hours without a bite, but when they come through,
it's gonna be
up. Game on, dude.
Yeah, exactly. And that's BS, because that's not how it happens. But anyway, so -7 out. Frankie's in his Frable. I'm in my striker suit. We never got in the shanty the entire day, and we fished until 5 o'clock that evening, and all we did was run around and punch holes and looking for fish. We found them at the end of the day. So if we go back, when we go back, we'll know exactly where we need to go, and then we'll start slamming on some giant crappies. But we never got in that thing the entire day, and neither one of us was cold. ever, and it was negative digits. I think at 4 o'clock it warmed up to 20 degrees, but all day it was it was below 15 degrees most of the day.
Mhm.
I I fish with my fingerless gloves on.
Oh,
I
you're a
never
psychopath. I
I
can't do
never
that.
had to put my big gloves on, no hand warmers, no nothing, because my core and my legs were so warm that my blood flow was warm. And so I never got cold. Neither one of us ever got cold. And at the end of the day, when we're dragging everything back to the vehicles, we're both like, can you believe we didn't get cold. And so when you have the proper
Mhm.
attire, the day is way more enjoyable.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
the elements never became an issue because we were dressed appropriately. So
I'll fish a full day in like a full-on AFCO hydronaut glove, and people will be like, "How do you do that?" And I'm like, "It's more comfortable than having frozen hands." And once you
yeah.
learn it, I mean, I'll fish. I fished in opens with. I mean, and big. They're big.
Yeah, oh, yeah. But my fingerless gloves, you'll see the fingerless gloves in a clip that we're going to show in a minute. Because I think we should probably get into the swim jig, don't you think?
Yeah, let's hit it up. This is the
Yeah,
swim
don't
jig
we
in cold weather,
yeah, we don't have to put the
cold
video up
water.
yet. We don't have to put the video up yet because I want to show you a few things. Traditionally speaking, okay, this is a mobster swim jig, okay? I love the Mobster swim jig because of the head design and everything. It comes through grass really good. It comes over timber really good. So how this is my typical swim jig. I got a spine craw on here as a trailer. And traditionally you fire the swim jig out, you pump it, 6, 8 inches under the surface. You see it coming back. It's coming back to the boat. You come over logs and stuff, and the bass come out and get them. Traditionally, that's how you fish a swim jig. The other trailers that I use for traditional swim jig fishing is a Christy Craw. Now, the Christy Craw versus the spine craw, the Christy Craw has wilder leg action. Okay. So if I need something a little wilder, I go to the Christy Craw. Now, this particular one is called Camo, and I love to throw the camo on the bluegill colored skirt, which they call it Tommy gun. Okay, they named all their skirt colors after mobster crap. So this green pumpkin is grand, bluegill's Tommy gun, very traditional. Okay, another type of trailer that everybody fishes on this swim jig is the yum chunk. This is probably the most common.
In
It's
white.
in white. It's a fantastic. They'll throw the white, you know, trailer with the appropriate skirt color on it. And so this is traditional. Okay, this is traditional style swim jig fishing. You're throwing it shallow. You're pumping it visibly so you can see it. Every now and then you let it sink down into the invisible zone. But for the most part, you're fishing it from a foot to 4 feet below the
You see the
surface.
swirl when you get a bite.
100%. The flash, the whole, you know how it is. It's exciting to fish. I'll be honest with you. It's a ball bust. So that's the traditional way to fish the swim jig. Well, what we do in the wintertime um, is I slow roll a swim jig just like I'm fishing a Flash Mob Junior. So if you want to put the video up, the first video up, you can.
Which one is this? The one we transferred me, or the one on YouTube?
The we transferred one.
Okay.
And I do have a video that came out yesterday on YouTube LureNet on fishing this thing in the wintertime. Because up here, we do that a lot. And remember, Flash Mob Junior season, that's when I slow roll the swim jig. And I'll get into how I rig it and how I fish it in a minute. So I can just preface this by saying this is probably, judging by what I'm looking at, I think I filmed this just before Thanksgiving. The water temperature on this particular lake is 40 degrees. The grass has died back immensely. even though you can still see the grass there. So I just started trying to figure out where these fish were at. This is the first fish of the morning, probably my second or third cast. And what I found was this fish here didn't tell the whole story, because I caught this fish in about 6 feet of water off the dying grass.
There's a
Okay.
piece of the grass right there.
Correct. And so I wound up catching this fish just off the edge of the dying grass. And I thought that's what I had to do. So I started motoring down this grass edge, looking where I only focused on the spots where the contour lines touched up tight against the grass. I wanted a stark edge. So I focused on all the contour lines on all the little inside corners that you can see on this grass. Well, visually. Well, that proved to be, that fish there proved to be an anomaly, because that's not how I wound up catching them. So on the next fish that you're going to see, you'll understand, because it looks like I'm in the middle of nowhere. So what I wound up doing was I had to go to like Flash Mob Junior country. Okay. And so I went out and I kept my boat in 10, 12 feet of water, and I was slow rolling the Mobster swim jig, creeping it along on the slow dyed back grass as deep as it would go, and working it insanely slow. I mean, just really, really, really slow. And so, and you can do this now. Here, I'm showing this particular lake had grass in it, but you don't need grass. I do this on pure structure lakes all the time. Anywhere you fish a Flash Mob Junior or an A-rig type of bait, you can do this with the swim jig. I prefer the Mobster swim jig. I like the way it swims, and I like the way it comes through cover. But here's the rigging, okay? Should I show the rigging, or you want to show the video first?
I mean, stay forth, Frank Scalish. You can show the rigging and the video, or the video and the rigging, or the rigging, the video, and then rig it again.
All right. Well, we'll do the rigging, the video, then we'll talk more about it.
That'll work.
So now what I'm doing is I'm taking the same swim jig, okay? And here, look, this is a 5/16.
That was my next question.
This is a 5/16, okay? I went to the 5/16 because I was fishing it, between 10 and 12 feet of water, slow rolling it. I would throw the half if I had to fish it over ledges and other places, like if there was no grass present. I would fish the half and throw it just like I would throw my Flash Mob. All right. So I'm using a big pulse minnow as a trailer, and I want this bait big. This is a big, big. I mean, look at it. It's bulky. Whoa, where am I going? It's the same length as my hand almost. It's a big bait. Okay. I like that big bait in the wintertime because it swims, and it does its thing nice and slow. The bass in the wintertime, their metabolism slows down, but an easy meal, especially a big meal, is something they're going to go after because there's no calorie expenditure to get it. So now if you roll that video, you'll see what I'm talking about as far as where I'm at in this thing. And so now in the particular video, this was the main pattern of the day. This is how I caught all the fish, except for that first one, which fooled me. And I wasted about an hour trying to rediscover that pattern. But this was the real deal. So when I'm out here and I'm slow rolling this thing, and I'm way out. I'm not on the grass edges or anything. I'm way out. These fish had backed off, and they were just staging in that first structural break. There was immature grass on the bottom, but it wasn't like a grass mat like you saw earlier. And this is the kind of fish, and we caught them all day like this. It was just unbelievable. It was such a great day. And here, the water temperature was 40 degrees, and it was brutal. Really brutal. Now, I'm not wearing my float suit there, obviously.
You also got someone with you.
And I have a cameraman with me as well. So now you're going to see part of this video. You can just, right there. So I snap it through when I hit the grass. I just snap it through. And this thing just comes through. It just pushes its way right through all the grass. That is so money, I can't even tell you. It is just, it was everything. Now the grass that I was fishing deep was probably only about 10 inches to 2 feet tall. As the grass tapered down and the light penetration stopped, the grass got less and less. And I was right in that zone where the grass ended and the break line started. And that was the whole key to that particular day. And this is a fantastic technique. Now last year, not this winter, last winter I had the Flash Mob Junior was the money bait last year, winter, and I was throwing the swim jig in the same exact places I was throwing the Flash Mob, over these deep guts and everything, and the bass were suspending. I would just count the swim jig down, count it down to depth, and then start reeling it in nice and slow, maintaining a certain depth level. And I just adjusted the weight of my swim jig to how deep I wanted that thing to maintain, and just crushed them. This is a very overlooked swim jig technique. It's very overlooked, and it is dynamite because it is such a slow and accurate presentation. And if you guys use your forward facing sonar, you could really maintain that depth because you want it just above the fish. You don't want it below them, because suspending fish in the winter don't feed down normally. They feed up. Okay, now if your bait sinks through the suspended fish, one might peel off to go get it. But traditionally speaking, if that bass is suspended and your bait's going underneath them, half the time they don't even pay attention to it. So that's something to remember. But it's just a fantastic overlooked technique.
Go through that jig one more time. How you put the trailer on? You biting the tip of it off. I noticed it was he had a little bit of chartreuse on the tail of it, both in the video and there. How are you rigging it? Are you trimming the skirt, the weed guard, that type of stuff?
The weed guard is pretty much perfect on this bait, but what I'll do is, if you see, there we go. I'll put it by my bald forehead so you can see the barb on the hook. I trim the weed guard so it's just behind the barb of the hook. You see that? You see how that, just behind the barb of the hook, okay? Then I'll take my pliers and I bend the weed guard down, just because I don't want them to have a hard, straight thing where they bite into it and it's hard. I want it soft so it mushes down.
So the bottom quarter of your weed guard, you actually put a little crimp in it, a little that bends more down towards the hook.
Correct, exactly. Yep. And that's pretty much it.
Looks better too.
It does. It's cleaner. Now this skirt here is called the Numbers, and it's like a blue glimmer with chartreuse tips and little strands of silver pearl.
Yeah, I love this haircut in high school.
Yeah, exactly. I love this skirt color because it translates in clear water as well as off colored water. And there's a ton of different skirt colors, tons of them. So you don't have to worry about that. I'm using the big pulse minnow, and all I did with the pulse minnow was I just trimmed the eyeballs part of it off of it.
Right behind the eyes.
Right behind the eyes. Drink, and then that's it.
Okay.
And that's really how I fish it. And they got all, different colors of everything. So, Houdini, pearl white. I generally stick with Houdini and pearl white in the wintertime. Those are my two favorites, my go-to colors, basically. But you could use, Kitex work great in this situation. Other swim baits work really good on the back of this jig. So it's just personal preference, what you like, I guess I could say, what you like. What I throw the pulse minnow because I just love the way it's real lazy. Mm-hmm. I just love what it does in the cold water. I don't want something I got to really work to make it move. You know what I mean? I want something that is lazy. So it's really cool.
Take some questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
What
Let's
pound
do it.
line is Uncle Frank running, and is this braid or fluoro?
Money question right there. I can't believe I forgot to mention that. Okay, I throw straight fluoro. When I'm using this technique, I throw straight fluoro. I judge my fluoro thickness by how fast I want it to sink and what type of cover I'm fishing. So I'll use 12, 14, or 17. Generally, I'm using 14 or 17 because I found that the fish aren't line shy.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I need to maintain a certain depth, and the 12 keeps me in the deeper stuff longer, where I can run it flatter, where I'm not getting line drag where it's starting to bring my bait up. I can keep it at a certain depth longer. 12's not very scary in open water, but 12 can be very scary if there's grass and obstructions nearby. So then I'm 14 and 17. Most of the time I'm 14 and 17.
Pete says, I don't have grass in Georgia, Frank. We had hydrilla pop up this past season, but they sprayed it quickly. So how about if grass isn't present?
Yeah, it's no big deal. If grass isn't present, you're fishing it just like you would, and the same places that you'll fish suspending jerk baits and flash mob juniors. Same exact areas. There's no difference. This is wintertime fishing, so you're fishing in the same areas. This is just a different presentation that most of the bass don't see. And so it's really effective. It's really, really, really effective.
Nate just wants you to go back over the water temp range that you're looking for in this technique.
Okay, so water temperature to me, it doesn't matter. When I say it doesn't matter, if we're talking about fall into the winter time, you're going to be fishing dropping water temperatures. You may have to be closer to the bank, closer to grass, closer to wood, early fall. Typical square bill scenario. You know how you get that early to mid fall square bill bite? Mm-hmm. You can throw the swim jig in the same places, same time of year. As the bass start to back off in the wintertime, you just follow them out. Okay. Generally speaking, I'm fishing this. The water temperature is usually 38 to 45 degrees when it's really money, where it's just on. And I say 38 because if you get colder than that, you're walking on ice.
That's a good point. Aaron wants to know, what power and action of the rod are you using?
Okay, I go 7.5 foot medium.
Wow.
So medium to medium heavy, but I want the 7.5 footer. And I'm using a Powell 764 is what it's called, an Endurance 764. I want the softer tip in this situation because I want the fish to get it. I want them to get it in their mouth, grab it, and turn. And that softer tip gives them that ability. So when I lock up on them, I got a solid. I'm already solid on the fish when I get them. Now, occasionally you'll get one that's aggressive that blows slack in your line, but don't panic because he's got it down his throat.
Most of the time, is it mushy? Is it a tick? Is it a little bit of slack?
It gets heavy.
Really?
It gets heavy. It'll just get a little bit heavy.
So it's not a boom.
Sometimes. I mean, the winter bass are funky. I mean, even when I'm fishing like the suspending jerk baits in winter, sometimes the bite just gets mushy and sometimes they blow slack in the line. It just depends the aggressive nature. What I've found is if there's more fish present, they're going to hit harder because they're fighting for it. So that's what I found. If I get a ferocious bite, I know I'm around more fish.
Or it's a pike.
Yeah, or it's a pike or a muskie.
All right, a couple more good questions. Doug, what gear ratio reel?
You can use, I don't use super fast gear ratio reels. I don't. 6.4 to 1's the fastest I use, and I think that's 26, 28 inches of line per turn. But on the swim jig, sometimes I use my cranking stuff. My 5.4 to 1's, where I'm getting 20 inches of line per reel turn because I'm doing it real slow.
Yeah.
If you can't consciously slow down a high speed reel. because as you catch fish, you start to get amped up and you get a little more excited. It's a lot harder to slow down a high speed reel than it is to speed up a low retrieve reel.
Frank, just explain real quick. I know that this is a little bit off topic, but it is on topic. Gear ratio between what is the difference between, what does it mean? 5-3 to 1, 6-8 to 1, 7 to 1. Now there's some that are 9 to 1 and 10 to 1. I know that a lot of people probably know this, but what does that gear ratio mean when you're buying a reel and you want to use a slower one in winter?
Okay, well, here's the thing. What I do is I ignore the gear ratio and look at how much line it picks up per one reel turn.
Mm-hmm.
So for my crankbait fishing, I want 19 to 20 inches of line per reel turn.
Is that on the box?
Yes, it'll be on the
along with the gear ratio.
Yes, it'll be on there. So as your gear ratio picks up, you're picking up line. Like my 6-4 to 1, I think it is, brings in 23 to 25.
Every time you make one complete revolution
with the handle. Revolution, you're bringing it in 25 inches.
Okay.
The higher the speed, the higher the gear ratio, the more line per reel turn.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these high speed ones are bringing in 30 inches of line per one turn of the reel handle.
And when it says like 9 to 1 or whatever, 10, that
rocket.
means that with every turn of the handle, the spool is making a 360 revolution 9 times or 8.1 times
Correct.
or 6.3 times. But what you're saying is because of the spool size, because of how the reel is made, you can't just look at that and know that it's the same across brands. So you would rather look at inches per turn instead of revolutions per turn.
Correct. Because here, everybody's is different. They're all different. It might be a 5-4 to 1 in one company, and it's 19 inches per turn. It might be a 5-4 to 1 in another company, and it's 21 inches per turn. So I always go by how much in one turn. So like here, I gear down some of my reels on purpose. All right. So I'll buy slower gears for it. And then I put the gears in it and then label the reel. So I can get the exact amount of inches per reel turn that I want for whatever situation it is.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It is. It is, but you know what the thing about it is that I'm a goofy guy because I want all the exact same reels. So when I pick up a reel, everything feels exactly the same in my hands.
Right.
So I use all the same reels. So for example, I have all Garcia STXs and the Revo winch. So I'm throwing all Revos. Okay. Well, the STX has a higher gear ratio than my Revo winch. Even though they're the same profile reel, they have different gear ratios. So I took some of my STXs and geared them down. So I can gear them down to the same retrieve rate as a winch. So now they're all identical, basically. So whenever I pick up, whatever rod I pick up, it feels exactly the same in my hand. I can't stand having all kinds of different reels for everything. I want everything identical.
I'm all over the board right now. I've got all sorts of different reels going.
Yeah. Well,
and then it is what it is. Most
right
like that. But hey, a couple guys pointed out also it also depends on how much line you have on the reel, because if you are under spooled, your gear ratio is going to be slower, and if you have a massive amount of line on there, it's going to be faster because your revolutions are
lots of variables.
Really good question here. Let's go up. Where was it? It was something about how often you get the shakes. Or no, do you Alabama shake or slow roll? Go through the retrieve on that again, because like I said, I think there's a stigma associated with the swim jig.
There is.
And you talked a little bit about it at the beginning, but you
are
I'm
fishing
going
back.
The swim jig differently.
Yes, I'm going back. Traditional. Here, I'll just pull this up. We'll call your Craw trailers traditional. Okay.
This is warmer weather, bluegill are spawning, fish are in
Correct.
3 to 5 foot of water around hard cover or grass, and you're looking for an aggressive feeding bite
Right. So
where
here,
you're
so
searching for them.
right. So here, if I'm throwing the craw chunk, or if I'm throwing, you know, a Christy Craw or a craw chunk, I'm shaking it, I'm bringing it in, and I'm shaking it, I'm pumping it, so the bait's you know, almost visible. Always fishing it almost visible. That's the warm water technique. That's when you're throwing square bills and stuff like that. You're honking this thing. You're getting total reaction strikes
Yep.
out of it. You're making these fish just they can't stand it. They have to get it. In the winter time, I am fishing it exactly the same way you fish a flash mob junior or an A-rig. I'm slow rolling it. The only time I do any of the shaking stuff is if I come in contact with something and I just want to poof it over it or poof it through it. That's the only time I'm moving that. Otherwise, it's slow and methodical, just like if you were fishing an Alabama rig. No different.
Are you okay? So there's a lot of like a ball head with that exact swim bait that you're putting on the trailer. You could also fish it. But what I feel like you're doing with that swim jig is you're utilizing the skirt and the shape of the head in combination with that trailer to be able to keep it in the same water column longer than you can just a ball head in the plastic, because you have more resistance, and
Yes.
while at the same time offering a bigger profile to the fish than it would be just a standard swim bait with a ball head on it.
That's correct. This thing is streamlined. So I'm getting the head is very streamlined. It's designed to come through and over everything. So what I'm doing is I'm using the skirt material, the bigger swim bait body to slow this thing down. So I can slow it down and maintain a certain depth. That's why I use the 5/16 until I have to fish it way deeper. Then I go to the half.
Mm-hmm.
In the winter time, because
Right.
in warm weather months, there's times when I'll put the half on so I can crank it in like as fast as you could turn a reel handle. So it's just like burning a spinnerbait for smallmouth. You can't reel the spinnerbait fast enough, but you got to keep it just under the water. So you go to 3/4 ounce spinnerbaits and 1 ounce spinnerbaits. So you could burn it in at Mach 10 and keep it 10 inches under the water surface. Otherwise, if it's too light, it comes to the top and starts flopping out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much how you adjust your swim jig weight, by how fast you need to retrieve it and where you need it to be in the water column, aka warm weather months where you're a foot to 3 feet below the surface, or in the wintertime when you're fishing at 12 to 25 feet deep. So you make your adjustments that way.
Doug says, ask Frank if he ever cuts the sides of his paddle tail to give it a tighter swim, or do you just stick with that paddle tail throughout the whole winter?
I have cut them before. But I like the thumping on this pulse
minnow. Can you feel that?
You can. You can on the 5/16. When you go to a half, you can't really feel it.
So if it
yeah, you feel it working down there. You feel it vibrating.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's. But yeah, I don't cut them too much. If I get one that doesn't work properly, I'll try to cut it up, and get it to swim better. Or I'm kind of lazy when I'm catching fish. I don't want to waste time. I'll just grab a straight one and throw it on.
My next question is, when are you going to reach for this instead of the Flash Mob Junior? Is it a pressure deal? Is it, what is, you said you use it in coordination in the same areas, but when is it going to shine more so than the Flash Mob Junior?
I always throw it when I'm throwing the Flash Mob Junior.
In combination, one, two, keep it honest.
Yeah, always. Because what happens is you'll pick up extra fish. And it could be the main pattern. Like the day I went filming, the day I filmed that video, which is out now on
Hmm.
LureNet YouTube. Um, the day I filmed that video, they wouldn't touch a flash mob, and I murdered them on this thing for whatever the reason. And I think I know what the reason was. Um, because the shad were backing out of that grass. The shad were not getting super tight balled up yet. Because what I was seeing individual shad scooting out on my locator. And I even had a couple of really big gizzard shad following this thing, like ticking on it when I was
Hmm.
reeling it in. So I think that was the reason on that particular day why the swim jig outshined it. But if you throw it in conjunction with, you're going to pick up fish that you're not catching on the A rigs. And the other thing is, generally speaking, I catch a lot bigger bass solo on this. So
Interesting.
yeah, it was crazy. That day we went out, um, I had probably close to just over 24-pound limit, 5 fish limit, but caught a lot of them. And I had a couple buddies of mine, they were out the same day, and they caught them good, but they didn't catch them that good. So, you know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah.
it's fishing, man. It's fishing. So
Yeah.
everything with fishing, you cover your options for the time of the season that you're on the water. There might be a few techniques that work in that parameter of the season based on water temperature, depth, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to cover your options because you don't want to narrow it down to one bait unless the bass tell you to, which that day, the Mobster swim jig they told me everything I needed to know because they were choking on it.
Hmm.
So I didn't have to play around. Now, in the morning of that video, I started out with, I think I had 5 or 6 different baits on, jerk baits, flash mobs. I had all kinds of stuff going. And it wasn't working out. And the first or second throw out with this, I caught one. So I went, okay. But I was in the wrong location and fished for about an hour, didn't catch another fish. And I said,
Hmm.
that ain't right. So I backed off. And as soon as I got way off, oh my God, it was unbelievable. So it's fishing. I mean, you still have to
Yeah.
figure the bass location out. That it never changes. So
I think as a whole, Frank, I know I don't utilize a swim jig as much as I should. And if you look at really successful touring pros right now, like a Bill Lowen,
oh,
a
Billy's
Jason
good.
Christie,
Yeah.
a Greg Hackney, there are so many guys who use a swim jig in so many little hybrid situations that's not
Yes.
just an ideal, that's a swim jig spot.
Right.
There's some big bass guys that are absolutely destroying them in the winter with it, using that forward-facing sonar. You're looking at what you're saying. It's really a 365 days a year bait that is
100%.
probably, when it comes down to it, one of the top 3 most versatile baits in the box.
Oh, 100%. 100. That's why I wanted to do this swim jig show so badly, because most bass fishermen think of the shaking the rod
Let's put it
tip,
in a
smoking
box.
it, right, smoking it underneath
Yeah.
underneath the water, and then when that bite goes away, that rod never comes out again.
Yeah.
And that's just not how it goes. You know what I mean? I got my eyes opened up on the swim jig way back in the day. Right when I first started fishing Bassmasters, here's a story from Uncle Frank. I went to Arkansas, and there was
Dardanelle?
no, it was this it wasn't a private lake. It was a small lake, and they make
Okay.
fun of me to this day about it. It was a small lake, and there was a army base nearby, and they would do these bombing drills and
Oh,
stuff.
wow.
And so if you're on the water and they're doing this drill, you feel the in the boat, So I had never thrown a swim jig before, and the people that I was with said, you got to fish with this guy. His name is Mitch. He's a big bass king. He's going to show you everything you need to know about a swim jig. So I'm like, okay, well, I had been fishing for weeks up to this point. So when I got there, I wasn't burned out on fishing. I was just burned out. You know what I mean? Like I didn't like, they're like, we'll get up and we'll meet at the lake at, 6 in the morning. And I'm thinking more like 9. You know what I mean? I just want, I want to go out. I want to get a steak tonight. I want to have a couple beers and I need to rest because I have been on the road for literally weeks. So they're like, no, we're going to meet in the morning. And in fact, you just meet Mitch out there. And then if you start catching them, we'll get the camera guys out there and then we'll do this photo shoot. I'm like, okay. So I bring my bass boat and literally leave it in the parking lot. I grab one rod out and a handful of swim jigs. And I told Mitch, we'll just take your boat, dude. He's like, you sure? I go, yeah, we'll just take it. So I'm sitting on and he had an 19 or an 18-foot aluminum bass boat. And I'm sitting on his motor with my feet on his back deck. And my arms are crossed and I got my fishing rod up, through my arms. And he's like,
hanging out.
Yeah, he's like, dude, you're not even fishing. I go, now you fish for a while. I want to see what you're doing because I've never fished a swim jig before. Now this is, 20 years ago.
Right.
I said, I never fished a swim jig before, so I'm just going to watch you. So he's like, okay. And he's like, this lake's got giants in it. You're going to be, I said, I want to learn something. So I'm all ears. Okay. He fires that thing out there and he's doing it so fast. It is literally going on the water. Like he's dragging a squid for marlin. I'm like looking at him. I go, why don't you just throw a freaking buzzbait? You know what I mean? And he goes, no, they want the swim jig. Well, sure enough, dude, boil comes, whoom, he smokes this fish and it's like a 3-pounder. And he goes, I swear to God, there's giants in here. You don't understand. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching him and he catches like 3 or 4 and they're like cookie cutters. They're 2.5 to 3-pounders. And I'm like, okay. He goes, you going to fish now? I go, yeah, I'll fish now. Well, I had saw where he made a cast into that gator grass and he was chucking it. Literally, it would skip out of the water, go underwater like this far, and then come out of the water and go underwater like that far. And I saw a boil underneath this big pile of brown dead gator grass that he never got the fish. The fish never got his thing. So I said, I think I'm going to fish now. So I fired my swim jig out there and I'm pumping it under the water, keeping it moving. I come to that big brown dead clump of gator grass. As soon as I came over the gator grass, I killed the swim jig and that lump of gator grass goes whoa, like that. And I lock in on them. I'm like, oh my God, dude, I get an 8-pounder. Wow. Right. So I'm like, holy.
That's your first swim jig fish.
First swim jig fish.
8-pounder.
First cast. So I'm like, you know what I mean? I'm like vibrating. Now I'm like a new man. So I'm on the back deck of his boat and he's honking. He's doing a KVD down the bank. Okay. He's just motoring.
High bypass.
Dude, cranking. I didn't even throw until I saw the big brown dead clumps of that. And every time I came across one of those, I caught a behemoth. All right. So he looks at me and he goes, you're the fastest learner I've ever seen in my life. I go, what are you talking about? How hard is this? You know what I mean? He goes, I catch all the little ones and you're catching all the giants. I go, dude, you're missing the pattern. He goes, what are you talking about? I'm catching them. I go, dude, every one I catch is over 5 pounds. Every one you catch is under 3. I said, you're focusing on all the green crap. I said, the big ones are under them big brown clumps of the crap. So I don't even waste time throwing on the green stuff. You know what I mean? I just wait till we get a clump of what I need to see. So we call the camera people. They come down. We're doing a photo shoot for a brochure, okay? And the weather gets bad. It starts cracking thunder, and everybody disperses. And except for one of the guys there, a good friend, we became very good friends over the years. So Chris stayed back. So Chris said, "I'm going to fish with Mitch." And I said, "Well, take me back to the bank. I'll launch my boat, and we'll do a best bass thing." So they go, "Okay." So I run out, I get my boat, I dump it in the water. Now I'm on a mission because now I get it. So,
Right.
so I go, "You guys pick which way you want to go." So Mitch goes out, "We're going to go that way." And I'm like dumbfounded because the opposite end of the lake is where I was catching all them big ones. So, and it had more of the dead stuff.
Mm-hmm. More
They
what you're
went,
looking for.
yeah, they went to the greenest stuff they could find in the lake. I went to the dead stuff. I caught the biggest limit of bass that I have ever caught in my entire life. It was like 28, 29 pounds for 5. And I lost one that I swear to God was over 11 pounds
On the swim jig.
on a swim jig. And so I said, "Oh my God in heaven." You know what I mean? This is incredible. So I take my new swim jig knowledge with me. And for 3 years after that, I think I caught 2 fish on it. I could not make it happen.
Probably tried it everywhere you went.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And I, even on Lay Lake during the Classic, I couldn't catch crap on it. I said, "I'll never throw these stupid things again." You know what I mean? And then it turns out that now I'm catching fish on them all over the place. I don't understand if I'm doing something a little bit different, or because we actually used Uncle Josh pork trailers on the swim jig.
Did they make like light natural colored ones?
Black and blue and black and chartreuse, and we were throwing black and blue swim jigs, and it was unbelievable. The big one, not the number 11. What was the next size up from the number 11?
Dude, that's before my time, Uncle Frank.
All right, well, Uncle Frank and Uncle Josh. So anyway, so seriously, so that's what, that's how it started. But now you have so many options with different plastic bodies.
Yeah, you showed 5 different plastic bodies today.
Right, and I didn't even show you the sleeper body, dude.
Show us the sleeper body.
The money craw, the Yum Money Craw. The legs move real slow and goofy, okay, on the money craw. If someone's throwing a swim jig in front of me, I'll throw this behind them.
Even in cold weather.
Yeah, it is the completely different, 100% completely different action than like, the craw chunk where the legs are going, which is phenomenal. This is probably the best warm water trailer going, is something like this, because the legs go crazy, dude. That thing is just doing its thing, the best. So you just got to determine, do you want super tight fast claws like the spine craw, flappy craws like the craw chunk, a little slower claw movement like the Christy Craw, or the real crazy movement like the money craw? You know what I mean? You just have to experiment with it, because that's the beauty part about this technique, is that you could stumble on something during the day that could put way more fish in your boat by not being so narrow-minded. You know what I mean? You have to keep an open mind. And that's kind of why I really like fishing it, because it is, Matt, you're right. It's very, very versatile. It's very versatile. Swim jig on the back of it. I mean, come on. I mean, it's perfect. People don't think that you're going to fish a swim jig like a flash mob. And here I am. I'm catching them all winter long on this stupid thing.
You ever fish that thing without a trailer at all? Just swim jig with the skirt?
No. I have my OCD will never let me do that. Same thing with a spinnerbait. I see guys pick a spinnerbait up with no trailer on it, and I start to vibrate. I'm like, I can't watch this guy.
I guess something like a chatterbait without a trailer or vibrating jig without a trailer.
I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't. I got to have a trailer on my spinnerbaits. I got to have a trailer on my chatterbaits, and I got to have a trailer on my swim jigs.
That's
I
a
can't.
good question. One more question, and Sean had it. You ever bump the bottom with that? Keep it on the bottom, or is this more so a suspended bait technique?
No, that's the beauty part about this. If they're relating to the bottom, you could hop it along the bottom and slowly drag it and swim it,
Mhm.
and it looks, I mean, it's so versatile. It is
If they
super
are on the
versatile.
bottom, near the bottom, are you more likely to go with a swim bait ball head and not have the skirt and the bulk and go a little bit heavier so you can crawl something lower?
It depends the time of year it is, to be honest with you. If it's warmer months, I'm football jigging, Carolina rigging,
Oh,
or cranking.
cold weather month. So
Cold weather months, I'll still throw the swim bait on it and just keep it scooting along the bottom, nice and easy and slow.
I got you. What else you got?
God, man, I'm wore out.
That was good stuff. That's something that I'd never really explored. That was the swim jig in the really cold water, and as the show went on, the more I realized it makes sense. It
It
100%
does.
makes sense. It's a bait that a lot of people put into a box, and when you think about it, it has all of the elements that you need for it to be a really good cold water bait.
Exactly. And see, the reason I did that video was for the exact same reason, because when the Mobster swim jig came out, they wanted video on it. And I said, well, I'm not going to fish it the traditional way. I mean, you got a million videos. Jason Christy just did a million videos fishing the way you're supposed to fish a swim jig, supposed to fish it.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to do a video on how you're not supposed to fish it. And I waited until the winter time and then went out and did it. And I had more fun pre-fishing, actually, before the video, because I crushed them. And, it was fun. I mean, it was just insane amount of fun. And so that's what I did. I said, I'll show you these guys something. Now, a lot of guys probably already knew this. There's guys up north that have been fishing this swim jigs this way for years.
Oh yeah, Kennedy's big on the swim jig. Seth Feider's big on the swim jig.
Yeah,
and then you didn't even go into the dock skipping and all the Carolina guys with like the Thrift and the Andy Montgomerys and.
Yeah, there was a tournament on Norman one on a swim jig.
It's unbelievable how versatile.
Yes, skipping under floating docks. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, it's a really good technique.
Well, Uncle Frank, I want to thank you for being with me through the first month of BTL Solo without the fearless leader, Mark Jeffries, bringing a lot of good knowledge, and we will continue every week with shows. Next week, I will actually be competing. Next Thursday is day one of the Bassmaster Southern Open on the Kissimmee chain, Lake Toho, down in Florida outside of Orlando. We've talked about how we're going to deal with the shows that I am currently absent on during competition days, and we actually have one in the can that I have been anxiously awaiting listeners of day 4 and fans of the entire Scalish family now to listen to. And I thought it was kind of cool. I got an email that said, hey man, look at all the trophies and stuff behind Frank. Like, it would be awesome if you guys kind of did a show that went through each one of those or some of his plaques, kind of how he came up, some stories. And that's actually what we did when Frankie was in town a couple weeks ago. Was we got one in the can. We just recorded it. So next Thursday, that is the show that will be airing on day 4. Kind of goes back through your history. And man, I think you really opened up in it. I mean, you kind of went deep on that one, man. I was impressed and got a deeper understanding for how you gained such a deep knowledge base and such a love for the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to do a shout out to a friend of mine. His name is Marty. Marty is the one who actually showed me the wintertime swim jig tip probably 10 years ago. So I got to thank my buddy Marty. He's a
I
good
love
dude.
those calls when you get a buddy who calls and he's like, dude, you're not going to believe it. You got to see this. Get in the
That's
boat.
exactly
Come on.
100%. That's exactly how
Those
it
are the
happened.
best kind of calls that happen. That and
It's-
I'm on the crappie. Those are the two types
Yeah,
of calls.
I swear it's so true. Isn't it so true? And they go like this, and dude, they're all over 15.
Yeah.
Like I'm right there.
You
I'll be
show
there in
up
2
like
seconds.
we might have our limit in an hour, and you're sitting there, you're like have 20 things to do, and you either like hang up and don't talk, or you just say screw it, drop everything and go to the lake.
Yeah, I'm dropping everything and going if I get that call.
That works.
That's
If you,
fantastic.
If you're in the mood for some cold weather chowder, be it walleye cheeks, chunks of fish, fantastic recipe from Frank in the first part of the show. You can go back, save it, screenshot it,
Absolutely.
go over to Frank's Instagram and see what it's supposed to look like.
And Scalish_fishing, but don't forget capital BTL 22, 15% off on all your purchase on LureNet.
There it is right there. As part of the celebration of the 50th show last week, that runs through When does
February.
that run through?
End of February.
That runs through the end of February. Uncle Frank, stay warm. Good luck ice fishing. Thanks for the swim jig tips today.
No problem.
And there will be a day for next Thursday, but we won't do a live one for 2 weeks. So I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Got it. Good luck, dude.